Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One with me, Ananya Datta. Let's straight go across to Pretoria, where the South African President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be sworn in for a second term. This comes after last month's election, where the African National Congress for the very first time did not receive a full mandate.
Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha.
On what has led to this day, for the very first time, the African National Congress did not receive a full mandate, the majority mark needed to form a full government, which is why it was compelled to form a coalition government, which is being called the unity government by the ANC. And just on Friday, in fact, the pro-business Democratic Alliance had announced that it would co-govern with the ANC in quote-unquote spirit of unity and collaboration, which is keeping in light the country first and not the divisions. Now, two smaller parties, the socially conservative Inkatha Freedom Party and the right-wing Patriotic Alliance, are also part of the pact. Interestingly, the Marxist Economic Freedom Fighters, which is also known as the EFF party, it has said that it will not be part of the government. And also the MK party, which has been in the news for former President Jacob Zuma, who has formed the party. Now, he has also stood out and said that we will not be part of the unity government. So a lot of uncertainty at the moment, but just in a few minutes from now, the live visuals coming in from Pretoria, where President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa will be sworn in. Now, to get us the latest from Pretoria, I'm being joined by my correspondent, Kaldane Ongmu. Kaldane, what is the latest you're telling us?
Thank you so much, Ananya. The atmosphere here at the Union Buildings is electrifying. President-elect Ramaphosa is about to be sworn in another 20 or 30 minutes. Currently, from the visuals you can see, there's an interfaith-based organizations praying for the day, praying for President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa. But, Ananya, let me just bring you in where, the experts have been saying today is the day, it's a historical moment for South Africa. Ramaphosa is being elected for the second term with the help of their former rival opposition party, Democratic Alliance, Cyril Ramaphosa. Even though ANC failed to get two-thirds majority, he was elected with the help of Democratic Alliance and the IFP voting for him in the parliament last week.
Absolutely. And if you could tell us a little about the future, because this is a unity government, a coalition in every sense, but unity government as being it's called because they are trying to keep a united front, keeping all the differences aside, which you also mentioned. How does the future for South Africa look with a coalition government?
Well, South Africans wanted to change. They're getting change, and as everyone says, the easy part for Cyril Ramaphosa as well as ANC is over. Now the difficult part starts. Cyril Ramaphosa will form his cabinet. Usually, if we go and look at the history, all the president-elects have formed the government one day after they've been sworn in. So we're expecting Cyril Ramaphosa to announce his cabinet any time before the weekend. So that will be the difficult part for ANC. Because remember, at a given point of time, the partners in the GNU are Democratic Alliance, Inkatha Freedom Party, and just recently another party, the Good IFP, as well as Patriotic Alliance. And last evening, actually, there's another party called PAC. They've also joined the Government of National Unity. So they're all going to come together. It's going to be a very difficult decision for Cyril Ramaphosa to take. We're hearing that DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, is eyeing the deputy president's seat. So it's not going to be an easy road for ANC, especially President Cyril Ramaphosa going ahead with the Government of National Unity. As some say, policies between ANC and its former rival Democratic Alliance are in contrast. If you talk about foreign policy, if the ANC looks at different ANC and DA stands at loggerheads. So what's going to happen with all the foreign policy? But last week, actually, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula did say that the foreign policy is not going to change. Their stand on Palestine remains. So remember, if we go back a bit to give you a background, where Democratic Alliance has always said they're not going to be siding for only one country, that's Palestine. Even in terms of Russia-Ukraine war, as much as ANC has always taken a stance that, the war must end, but they've always been friends with Russia, Russian President Vladimir Putin. They've got a lot of criticism, not just from global other countries, but also from Democratic Alliance, who's always, maintained actually DA leader George Steinbrenner even visiting Kiev at one point of time. So the foreign policies between the two parties are at contrast. So how they're going to come together, sit at the table, and discuss going forward, this will be a very interesting times going ahead. Just looking at which party is going to get what portfolio in the cabinet is going to be very interesting. In fact, the Patriotic Alliance leader, Hayden McKenzie, has actually demanded that he get the Department of Home Affairs of Ministry of Police. So, each party has their own demands, what they want to, which seats they want to take in the cabinet, but all rely on President Cyril Ramaphosa on who will he go with in his cabinet.
Absolutely, Kaldin. Rightly, you say that challenging times, yet interesting times ahead for South Africa. And I have to reiterate here, the African National Congress has been forced to share power for the very first time in 30 years after losing its majority in the May 29th elections. And it has to work out how to divide up the top cabinet jobs and overcome ideological differences with its new partners, as you said. But if we try to bridge that with the voter concerns that we saw this time, Kaldin, we have been extensively covering what's been happening in South Africa with you before the elections, after the elections, and some of the top issues that we have been discussing of the voters is corruption, poor economy, education and unemployment, rise in crime rate and power cuts. So as you say, voters wanted change, and this is the change that the politics has to offer to the voters. Now, the economy is going to be a major factor here, and this is something that the coalition partners will have to come on board with. If we have figures, if we talk about the figures, just last year in 2023, South Africa's economy grew a meager 0.6%. How do you think that front is looking?
Well, Ananya, that's another factor that everybody has been speaking about since the formation of Government of National Unity. If you remember, even before ANC announced that they're going with a unity government, people had been making, statements and remarks that ANC and DA is the best pairing. DA, remember now, they are the right-leaning party, white-led party, and, there were accusations that the market, the currency runs in favor of DA. So, it was always been like that. But there was other criticism from other opposition parties like former President Jacob Zuma's party, MK party, EFF, and also some of the experts stating that, the market and the economy just can't run positive when it comes to DA, So right now, actually, if you see Ananya, markets yesterday at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange actually closed all green. In fact, today, if you look at the rand, which is South Africa's currency, is doing very well. But for the first time in many months, actually, it has strengthened. The rand is now standing at 17 point something. So I haven't checked the latest, but it has fallen from the $18 mark. So it is doing very well. Some of the experts say that even ratings agencies may seeing this Government of National Unity as a positive impact or the positive future for the country. So they say so if you look at the economy front of the country, whatever this Government of National Unity does, if all the parties come together, leaving the differences aside, if they sit and work together, they say this is going to work. Government of National Unity is going to work. But you must also remember, this is almost like a deja vu. ANC had the Government of National Unity 30 years back when in the apartheid when the ANC won the first government election since the democracy in 1994. Then also ANC had formed, Nelson Mandela's party had formed the Government of National Unity with ANC, National Party, as well as the IFP then. So many of the experts are talking about it's like South Africans seeing a deja vu of what happened 30 years back. And now they're standing here, saying, looking at the same place, though the country has changed a lot, even though ANC has always said that, They wanted, there's no other party better than ANC to understand its people. But it was high time the South Africans wanted change. They said, you know, the corruption is too much in the country. The crime is at the highest. Unemployment rate stands at highest right now. You know, South Africa. So some of these parties always saying this change of government of unity is welcome in South Africa.
Right, Carl. Then you briefly mentioned Jacob Zuma. Now, he was a man who was at the center of politics in South Africa for quite some time. He was part of the African National Congress. He stood side by side with Cyril Ramaphosa. They had their differences, yet they showed a united front. In fact, in 2009, he became the president of South Africa with 65.9% of the votes casted in favor of him. Then again, he came back to power in 2014 with 62.15%. And now we see that he's heading the MK party, who was actually one of the opposers of the ANC. Where does the May 29th election leave MK party President Jacob Zuma in the political spectrum of South Africa? All right, we seem to have lost our correspondent there. We'll try to reconnect with her.
As God promised to Abraham in the book of Genesis.
For those of you who are just joining in, we would like to reiterate that the visuals coming in from Pretoria is from the swearing-in ceremony that's taking place of President-elect of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. He will be sworn in at this inauguration ceremony. He will preside over the 7th administration since the end of apartheid and the advent of multiracial democracy. Now, we have to reiterate that the African National Congress, this is the first time in 30 long years since democracy started in South Africa that the ANC has lost its majority mark in the parliament and it was forced to share power. And as we have been telling you, the Pro-Business Democratic Alliance, also known as the DA, has had announced earlier that it will co-govern with the ANC. Now, judging by the history, the DA and the ANC have had their own share of differences, but this is for the first time that they have come together along with two smaller parties, one being the Inkatha Freedom Party and the next being the Patriotic Alliance. They have all now holding hands, trying to come together and give voters what they wanted, which is essentially change, as our correspondent also mentioned. And right now the next big task would be, of course, the cabinet selection. The negotiations between the parties in the unity government, as it's being called, will determine the composition of the executive branch, which is expected to undergo a major overhaul. And as our correspondent also mentioned, that the negotiations are currently underway. Political parties will negotiate conditions including preferred portfolios, positions and key ministries. Some of them being key, especially in this election, with the issues that the voters have been putting forward with finance, energy, foreign affairs and public enterprises.
Allow me to conclude with the ancient priestly blessings that were recited every day in the temple in Jerusalem until it was destroyed, with the Western Wall the only remnant of its once glorious precincts, blessings that have been said in our synagogues ever since.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.